I'm still never going to get used to that recording in progress thing. Liz, welcome back to the Granite Zero podcast. Thanks for coming back on.
Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. However, I almost fucked up again. So I was here 8 o'clock my time going, where the fuck is Liz? It's now nearly 30 minutes, and I noticed that you said, yeah, the code's all good. I'll see you then. I was like, what's going on? Right, I need to check the time. So I put in Pacific time in my phone, and I was like, well, that's 9 o'clock my time. And I was like, our clocks go forward for British summertime.
Yeah.
Why is that a thing?
I don't get it. They do the same thing here, and all it does is just mess my son up where he's like, no, the sun's still out. It's not bedtime. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm sorry.
My kids do the same. They do the same. Well,
for a while we left some of the clocks where he could see it, like his level. We left him set to the old times. We're like, yeah, not only is it bedtime, it's way past bedtime. He's like, yeah, I guess I go to bed. I'm just not tired at all. I'm like, so weird. My wife cut that out. She didn't think it was funny to mess with them.
It is funny, so should have carried on. Yeah, mine are on they're on school holidays now for Easter. So they're like, so we can stay up later now. It's like, you don't go to bed when we tell you to anyway. They're pains in the ass. We send them to bed. They come down at least 4 or 5 times for a drink, for another cuddle.
I'm so thirsty. I'm gonna die if I don't get another sip of water. Yeah.
It's like we it's the same every night. Do it before you go to bed. And they're like, oh, well, okay. And then the next night, and then we just deal with it now. To be fair, they're good as gold, but my wife's got work tomorrow and I've got work, so they've got to go to a friend's house. So we're like, you've got to have a normal bedtime because you've got to get up early like the rest of us. Yep. Oh, it's okay, we'll get up. Yeah, all right then. You're just gonna be grumpy as fuck. How's it going though? How's fight camp?
Fight camp's been great. I mean, fight camp has now been since September.
Jeez.
We gotten word. I mean, Scott had said that if I put on a good performance, came out with a strong finish, that either myself or Watanabe would be in title contention. I finished the fight 30 seconds, so that put me in exactly where I needed to be with contention and anticipation of what was expected a December fight. So I kind of rested, healed up, helped my buddy get ready for his fight, and prolong my fight camp. I'm like, I'll start in September. I'll have plenty of time, be ahead of the power curve. December came around. They're like, next month. The January came around, next month. So I've been in fight camp since September.
Yeah. Well, I did notice you're on a bit of a winning streak as well, and I was like, surely she's got to be entitled to a title soon.
Yeah,
it's got to be, surely, because I was like, that's got to happen. But this is now going to be the third attempt at a world title.
Yeah,
third time's a charm.
Yeah, exactly. Lessons I've learned from all the mistakes before.
Yeah, and I think, well, this is me just speculating now. Obviously, the first one, there was a lot of pressure going in. Being you guys headlined as well, didn't you? You and Rhonda headlined.
So the first one was actually Marlo's Conan. I'd only been training for 8 months to her 10 years at that time. Then the second one, again, facing Rhonda, who at that point I'd been training and fighting for 3 years, and she was an Olympian that's been doing it since she was 4. Yeah. So again, a little bit out of waters, inexperienced, but just trying to put in the best effort possible. And at that time, it was really difficult to find people that were proficient at judo. I could find people that were good in jiu-jitsu, but even then they were usually significantly larger than myself if they were able to offer anything and kind of fight off or put me in arm bars and allow me an opportunity to defend it off. It wasn't really people my size I could find that. And I could not find anybody that was offering an opportunity for judo that was close enough for me. At that time, I couldn't afford to travel to go train.
Yeah, of course. Different time back then.
Yeah, different time. And then I think a lot of people think like, oh, well, you were top ranked to be making money. I was like, no, I was barely making groceries. And I was between work and going to training sessions, and not really, I had no downtime.
Because that's what a lot of people assume as well. They're like, oh, they're fighting, they're on the telly, they're in the public figures. It's like, yeah, they also got to earn the money. It's not just handed to them.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people, I mean, until recently, I haven't been able to make a life out of fighting. You know, there was, I would say, for quite a few years where the cost of the licensing, the medicals, the travel, the time I put into fight camp, I was paying to fight for years. It wasn't breaking even. It wasn't like making a little bit of money. No, I was losing money every single time that I fought. And it was really just for the passion, for the love of wanting to be the best in the world. I wouldn't say until Bellator really that I can make a living from fighting, and was doing had reached a point in a pinnacle of my career where it was helping pay the bills, and I could actually take time to go train with other coaches and go travel to do things and stuff. It just wasn't an option. I was running and operating a gym full time, and if I wasn't in the gym for myself training, I was training other people. So I was really doing the gym life anywhere from 12 to 18 hours a day.
That's a shift. I moan at 12 hours. I'm on at my job now, but yeah, that's a massive thing. Really, is that a lot of people, including myself, you don't really see what goes on in the behind the scenes. You see the occasional. We'll use the UFC for example. They do like the countdown show. And they glamorize it. It looks all good, but that's like a small portion of the whole entire fight camp.
Yeah, and even, you know, like the countdown gives you a little bit of behind the scenes and look into what everything consists of, but I still don't think they do their due diligence of explaining how much effort and work really goes into the lifestyle of being a fighter, and how much sacrifice, how much it's. I mean, I know very few fighters able to do this full time, especially as a female fighter. It's, you have other lives, or you're married and your significant other is helping support your career and your dreams.
Yeah, because it's only sort of really now that it's starting to take this more of a shine to the women's side of mixed martial arts. There's sort of now people are starting to stand up and recognize the talent, the everything that you guys put through.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about it, and they say that, you know, the guy was like, "Wait, what are you doing here? You're Liz Carmouche." And I was like, "Oh, my wife is looking for a property. She's always has her eyes ahead and looking for something new." And so just, she's healing right now from a surgery, so we can't really go out and do anything crazy. So she'll open houses. And so we went to an open house, and he's like, female fights. He's like, that's what I tune in for. And his son was there, and his son is like, in all honesty, like, he's like, it's embarrassing to say, but it's the same thing for me. I tune in because the female fights are the most exciting. It's like, it seems like you guys go out there and sacrifice everything.
That's what I was about to say. It's as though the women fighters have got more of a point to prove now, so they go out and give it their all. We could use Meatball Molly for example, her last fight in London, and she even mentioned yourself and Ronda as the reason why she started doing mixed martial arts. She saw that your guys fighting and headlining in that show and was like, wow, that's something that I need to be doing. How's that make you feel that you're a pioneer of the sport?
You know, it's crazy. It's really not something I think about until somebody points it out. Like, my nephew's in school, and he's like, "Hey, you're in my textbook, by the way." I'm like, "I'm in your textbook." That's all right. Awesome. So I like, you know, it's just moments like that when people say, they approach me like, "Hey, you're the reason I'm training with them." I'm not thinking about it. It's like, "Hey, nice to meet you." We just go on and train at the end of the session. Like, "I'm sorry, I was so starstruck." I'm like, "What? I didn't notice it." Like, "You're the whole reason that I got into training and to be able to train with you." I'm like, "Oh, wow. Okay." You know, you don't, and especially when I feel like some of the women, I'm facing them. Like, these aren't just like, oh, they're up and comers. No, these are the top stars that everybody now knows their names. And to think that they have anything to do with their steps into that dream is crazy.
Yeah, and you're now the OG.
Yeah.
Less of the old. How does your son feel about the fighting and whatnot?
He doesn't. I just don't think he gets it. I mean, just a few weeks ago, he asked my wife. He's like, "Hey, when is mommy gonna grow up?" She said, when is mommy gonna grow up? Like, when is she gonna get like a real job where she sits at a computer? And she's like, "No." Well, just like so and so's dad and so's mom. And then I came home and I asked him about it. And he's like, "Well, it's just you train all day, and I train." I'm like, "You train for 45 minutes and you goof off. I train for 6 hours a day." I'm like, the house we live in, fighting did that. When we went to go to the state for Colorado to do a fundraiser for this medical fundraiser, I'm like, fighting did that. The bicycle that you're riding, fighting did. What do you mean a real job? My job. But I was like, just to be clear, I'm never going to grow up, and I never want to sit behind a computer. I hate doing that.
That's the Marine in you as well. You're definitely never growing up.
Yeah, no, never. No, I've had a Peter Pan complex my entire life. I'm never growing up. So no, it's weird. He doesn't quite get it. And the same thing, like somebody like a blue belt was telling him something in jiu-jitsu. He's like, "Did you hear what he said?" I'm like, "Yeah, he was all wrong." Like, no, He's like, isn't he so cool? He's a blue belt. I'm like, I'm a black belt. I'm a black belt. Come on. And for him, so, like, he trains in the gi. So when he gets to see it's important to him to see when he sees belts, that's what for him signifies your importance and where you stand, where your standing is. And so he never sees me in the gi. I do not train gi. When I'm done with fighting, I will train gi. But for right now, I don't want to do it, and I don't want to create any of these bad habits that are going to inhibit anything in fighting. That's why. So I don't touch the gi. So for him, he's never seen me with my belt on. He's never seen me in the gi. So it just goes completely over his head.
Hey, little dude, I earned my black belt. You watch your space.
Yeah. I had asked him, I was like, "Hey, how would you feel if somebody came up and they asked to take a picture with me?" He's like, "Why would somebody ask to take a picture with you?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "You don't pay attention, but every day that we go out, somebody stops us," and he just keeps on going, butterfly attention. I was like, well, some people might say I'm famous. He's like, "Why are you famous?"
I was the first woman to step foot in the octagon. Damn it.
There's that, but I love it because he really is. He gets to enjoy his life, and he's not. There's like when my nephew was around, and he was. I mean, when he was really getting to be more involved and seeing everything going on, he was training at my gym. I taught his jiu-jitsu class. I taught his MMA class. I teach a striking class from time to time. His mom and I would always do privates and beat each other up and all laugh about it and everything. So he grew up so much in the gym and getting to see my career spout up and turn into what it was. And I'm like, man, I feel like at some point we're gonna have to explain to him why people keep asking to take pictures and be like, "Hey, little dude, do you mind moving out of the way?" And he took it so much differently. So like to see my son kind of at the same age and just completely unaware, because I'm like, man, I don't, like we're gonna have to tell Aiden that what's going on. She's like, "I think he'll be okay with it, but maybe we shouldn't tell him and just let him live his own life." But then his friends are coming up to him, they're like, "Hey, your aunt is Liz Carmouche." He's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, cheers for that.
Because he's like, "Yeah, it's so weird. You got an invite to spend the night over." And it's like, oh, because they know who your aunt is. It's not really authentic for Aiden. So he had a better understanding. I think that kind of helped prepare me for my son. And then we also just wanted him to have a whole separate life. And we wanted him to,
I get that.
If he wants to pursue martial arts, to have no influence from me, that it was simply something he wanted to do. Like, hey, he's really big into building. Yeah, let's go full bore into that. And he never has to know about my fighting career because I don't ever want him to fight. I'd love for him to.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from fighters with kids, that they're like, "Well, I don't really want. I'm fighting so that my kids don't have to fight."
Yeah.
Which is amicable, really. It's awesome. Like, you're putting your body on the line so that they've got a better life, you could say, so they don't need to fight and struggle, which is awesome.
It's also that he and my wife both have a rare heart disease.
Oh.
And yeah, and so like every year for her, it's just another year that we're grateful for, because it's never a guarantee. All the medications, the surgeries, it's all experimental every time that she does something. And she through it because usually the gene for the heart disease activates at puberty. So my son has it, but hasn't activated yet. Potentially, on the best case, it never activates, and he really just has this dormant heart disease that'll never turn into something.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
It more than likely will activate at puberty. So she goes through all the experimental medications and surgeries, hoping that they'll understand more for if his does activate at puberty, what to do with him and to prepare him. So it's in his best interest to never get involved in sports, because like for her, she can't get cleared by medical boards to be able to compete with me, and she fell in love with me. That's how we met. And so for my son, I don't want him to fall in love with sports and never be able to go for it. It has the potential. If potential doesn't matter, but to have that passion and to have it cut off simply because of heart disease. I mean, my wife is super skilled, tough as hell, hits like a Mack truck, has a wrestling background, all this stuff, and the only thing stopping her is a heart disease that she's learned to work with, right? And so I would hate for him, and it's for both of us, for him to fall in love with something that one little thing is holding him back.
That's got to be hard. My wife's cousin has got I think he was born with a hole in his heart, so he's been through loads of different surgeries to try and fix it and whatnot. And he's now coming up to being 18, and he towers over me. It's not hard because I'm only 5'6", but he's literally 18 and he towers over me. He asked me if I can get on any rides if we go to the theme parks and things like that. I'm like, hey, you might be taller than me, but I'll drop you, motherfucker. But I remember him being this cheeky little kid growing up that was in love with soccer, as it is over here. He loves football. He loves everything about it, but he wasn't able to get that much involved because every now and then he would have to go off and have another surgery and things like that. And it was quite heartbreaking to see.
Yeah,
it must be horrible for you to go through. Like, you've got your wife and your son potentially to have this thing.
Yeah, it's super scary, especially like my wife. Not even 2 weeks ago. It's been a week as of today. Went through an emergency heart surgery. Her pacemaker failed, and so they had to rush her. She went in for a test, and they ended up rushing her into emergency surgery to replace a pacemaker. And up until that point, she's always used the pacemaker as like her fallback. Well, hey, I can do that. No big deal. If anything goes wrong, at least have this pacemaker. And I'm like, I really don't like that you say that, like a fallback. And then all of a sudden, pacemakers. She's like, so all those times where I said, at least I'm a pacemaker, I didn't know that this could happen. I was assured 10 years guaranteed this will never happen. And here it is, only 4 or 5 years into it, and her pacemaker gave out. So that's super scary. And now that ended up in, we'd anticipated at the end of the year she was going to have another heart surgery, but it was something that we were anticipating. It would be they have a new heart surgery they're trying out to cut out all the diseased heart that's been growing. And potentially she's got the battery for the pacemaker. So all in one, all inclusive. This was unanticipated. So that means she's potentially having 2 surgeries in 1 year. And just more and more she feels it on her body, and it's just taking time away from her.
That is madness. And trying to get my head around it. So you're going through all that as well as getting ready for a title fight. You're like that reel with the bloke that goes, I'm built different. You're built different. That's a lot of resilience coming through there to stay focused, but also, so you're focused on the fight, but also you've still got the ability to be there for your loved ones as well, because obviously being in fight camp can be quite selfish from what I've heard.
No, it absolutely is selfish. And my wife, like I said, she competed as an amateur MMA fighter. Watching my career, she says, she's like, look, if you need to go stay in an RV, go do something and just focus on your fight camp and be as selfish as possible to succeed, absolutely do it. And that's kind of what we were saying. One of our friends has an RV and we were planning on maybe just go stay there. You don't have to help with any, because we have, she has a pony, a horse, a goat, multiple dogs, cats. Like we have all the animals to take care of as well, like scooping their manure every morning, feeding them every morning, exercising them, all the stuff that we add into the mix. And she's like, so that way you can just focus and the surgery happens. She's like, I am so sorry. It's like, there's nothing you can do. Plus our son's in school. So I'm like, all right, get him to school or get him to his dad so he can take him to school, take care of all the animals, take care of my wife. And she's like, I don't know how you're doing. I'm like, just got to keep going. It's just, the key is momentum. Be like a vehicle. As long as the vehicle's in motion, we're good. Once we stop, I know I'm going to crash. But for right now, just keep it in motion.
Yeah, you've got so much going on. So there's going to be a hell of an after party after that fight. Everyone's going to think you'll be partying. You're not. You're going to be sleeping. You're going to be like, catching some Zeds.
I'm going to be on the beach in Hawaii, just crashed.
Because the fight is in Hawaii, isn't it? Is it?
In Hawaii.
Yeah. Oh, that's fucking brilliant. Aren't they still backwards over there with all the whole COVID thing? Yeah. Still backwards.
Yeah. And we were looking, because I'm a big foodie. And so one of the things, like as I'm doing cardio and stuff, I'm looking up all the food places and like out what I think I'm going to eat after my fight, right? Which is always the case. And then once I rehydrate, the fight's done, I'm like, I don't really care that much. As long as I eat, I'm happy. But like before the fight, when you're being super strict with food, you're like, I'm going to eat at this restaurant at 1 o'clock, then this restaurant at 4 o'clock. And so I'll be doing my cardio and like mapping out all the food stuff. And as I looked it up, trying to see like, do they require reservations? What the deal is? They're saying that you even need COVID test or your vaccination, proof of your vaccination card, or a negative COVID test within 24 hours to be allowed to go into the restaurants. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, because California pretty much just go anywhere as if nothing ever happened.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's like over here now. At one point you need your vaccination passport, you need all the blah 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 blah, and then as soon as, I can't remember what date it was, but as soon as that date hit, it was like, oh, it's gone. And now, thanks to Russia, there's no more COVID apparently.
Yeah, right.
But well, I say that, to be fair, from what I've read, I've tried to stay away from the news as much as I can at the minute, because it pisses me off, and I know most of it is bollocks. But it's like we've now reached a new record high of COVID cases, but it's like it's just a bad cold now.
Yeah,
that's what it seems like, because both my two daughters have had it the last, when was it? Not last week, the week before. They both had it. They had a bit of a cough, bit of a cold. That was about it. Me and my wife still haven't had it. 2 years undefeated. It's this madness. It's like I'm now waiting just to go, can I have it, just so I can say I had it, because it's pissing me off now. Like, everybody else is getting it. I feel left out. And this new variant is pretty much its own vaccine anyway, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's madness. So in Bellator itself, did the fighters get told that they had to get vaccinated, or was it your own choice?
No. So Bellator, regardless if you have your vaccination or not, they do their COVID bubble. Excellent. Which I'm totally cool with. You go out a few days in advance. You have to quarantine in your hotel room. You can only go from your hotel room to where their office is. They do their COVID test. They check your temperature, check weight, do your interviews, go back up to your room. That's it. And you're not allowed to, until the fight's done. Once the fight's done, do whatever you want. But at the same time, like, that's great for me, because I'm always in consideration of my wife and getting her sick.
Yeah,
so there's the risk is her heart disease. So I was like, hey, I have no issues. You want to just stay in my hotel room, and all I'm allowed to do is work out and stay in my hotel room? Cool with me. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, you mean I don't have to mingle with other people?
Oh, brilliant. No.
Oh, exactly. God help me. I can't mingle with other people.
Yeah, it's I always have that that no guilt feeling, knowing that I can go home and it's COVID free. I'm not bringing anything
Yeah,
home because
that's the main thing, I think.
yeah, because everybody in the organization has done such due diligence. What Bellator has done is basically we have check-ins that you have to do every day if you don't have your vaccination record. So if you have proof of vaccination, then you just do your COVID tests. You don't have to go downstairs and go check your temperature and do a questionnaire every day. But I already go check my weight anyway every morning on their scale just to verify. So it's just, it wouldn't matter. It's like, well, I can show you my vaccination card, but if I'm going to go down there to check my weight, you might as well just check my temperature anyway and go through the questionnaire. I don't mind.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah.
What was it, like a couple of minutes to get it all done?
Exactly.
Whatever. Yeah, we test now. It's quite difficult to get a test now. It's a pain in the ass. You have to go through online to get it sent to you. And anyway, but we do it, especially after the girls had it. We were like, well, we better do a quick test, not just to make sure we were all right, but my wife especially, will see her granddad every morning, more or less, because he's.
Yeah.
I wish I never really grew up with a granddad, but if I did, I wish he was him. He makes her lunch for work every day. This guy's like 85, I think, maybe a bit older. Every day he'll make her lunch. You make a little packed lunch. She goes and picks it up. I don't think he does it for any of the other grandchildren that hopefully are listening. But yeah, he does it every day, and she'll go and pick him up, or he'll walk her nan round to drop it off. Her nan has got really bad dementia and Alzheimer's. She's through the 14 years that I've been with my wife, there's been a massive like plummet in her mental status. When I first saw her, you wouldn't even know it was the same person. It's quite scary, in fact. Like, she doesn't even talk very much anymore, sort of mumbles.
Yeah.
Every now and then there's a little spark and she appears. Like a bit of music will set her off. But it's little things like that. So my wife won't go and see him unless she's had a test and things like that.
That's awesome.
Like you say, the due diligence. It's easy for you to say. I can't even say it. Me making up words again. I keep doing that. I keep making up words on it. I think that my last one was inaccurate. I still can't even say it. Inaccurate. Anyway, that's me. That's me done. I've had too many whiskeys already. But it's brilliant. Brilliant. So you only have a certain amount of time during the day now. Obviously, you've got free time and then it's focus time.
Yeah, and it's like this week in particular, Bellator and my management and that's usually how it goes. About anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks out is when all the media is like, "Hey, we want to do interviews. Do you have this time available?" And I'm like, I used to compromise and say yes, and then I'll just sacrifice some sleep and do it at this time and reschedule my training at this time. Now I'm like, no, this is my schedule. If you want to squeeze in at this time, I can work you in. If not, I'm sorry. I've learned it lost me fights by making those mistakes before, and I'm just not willing to do that.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that. I don't blame you, especially with a fight that of this magnitude and importance.
Yeah.
You're going for the gold. You're like, you can work around me. If you want to talk to me, you work around me.
Yeah.
I'm busy. Yeah. If I'm not with my wife and my kid, I'm training. So you've got this slot, and if you can't make it.
Yeah, and before it would be like, oh well, I guess I just won't take my son to gymnastics today, and that was not fair. That wasn't fair to him. Or just like, I'll just
of course
take away from, like, every Sunday night we make pizzas together, and we usually pick like an 80s movie, and so we try and make our culture as possible. Like, he's going to school talking about Kevin Bacon, asking people if they know who he is. Brilliant. It's great. Yeah.
My eldest is really into Stranger Things, and obviously that's set during the 80s. So she's watching these kids ride off on their bikes willy-nilly. Like, she's like, why can't I go out on my bike like that? It's like, it's a different time, young lady. It's a different time.
Yeah. None of us knew better at that time. Now we know better.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, one of their favorite movies is the original Ghostbusters movie. Both my girls like that. And what was the other one? The Goonies. They love the Goonies. So it's all these different movies that I grew up watching, going, these are brilliant.
Yeah, my wife had never seen the Goonies. I mean, mind you, so she had her first pacemaker installed, I think, at 17. I want to say. And so for her, if she gets startled, if her heart rate goes up too much, her pacemaker goes off. Really uncomfortable feeling. Right. And she's easily. Yeah. So she hasn't watched a lot of movies. And then as a kid, she's like, I just don't want to watch scary movies, so I won't watch it. So for her, E.T. is scary because there's an alien in it. She never watched because there was a skeleton that popped out. Like all these movies is like, but they're not scary movies. E.T. is not a scary movie. How are you?
My youngest. Is it my youngest or one of my kids, whichever one it is? They're petrified of E.T. She's like, I don't understand what it is. I went, he's an alien. There's nothing to understand. She went, but why is he so weird looking? I went, because he's an alien. Yeah, my youngest is she loves Star Wars, so we started Star Wars from episode 1. She sort of tapered off, where I'm still going, are we going to watch Star Wars tonight? Getting all excited. She's like, nah, I'm okay. It's like, what? We're only on Rogue One. We got loads to catch up on.
Yeah, we made it through all the Harry Potters. And my son's like, well, when's the next one? I was like, that was it. He's like,
you got strange. No. You got Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah. That's the next one that we have. We went down the 80s kick, and that was just such an easy road to fall down.
Yeah. To be fair, I like it when you get sort of movie series that are based on the books that you can go, right, we're watching this one now. We're watching, like, I don't know, whichever one it is. Goblet of Fire, which is my favorite, I think. When you first see Voldemort properly. I always root for the bad guy. I'm such a dad. I'm rooting for the bad guy. Even if he is horrible. But yeah, my daughters are really into Harry Potter. They've got, or my eldest especially, she's reading all the books. She's a proper bookworm, which I love, because I never was. So watching her read and love books, I'm like, this is brilliant. I wish I could do that. I'm too much. I'm too like thick-skulled to go, I'm going to pick up a book and read. Typical infantry person. I can't read that. Fuck off. But yeah, she's into all the books. So she read the books, watched the movies, and we went to the making of Harry Potter, the big thing in London, which is awesome. Yeah. She's been there about. The funny thing is, I thought it was some sort of like theme park thing. It's not. It's literally where they film the movie. So it's got like all the different areas where they film scenes, and they've got mannequins up wearing the actual clothes. I got bored, not gonna lie. I was like, what is this? What? I'm going around a museum. They're like, it's the studio. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, a museum, essentially.
Yeah, but one of my buddies is a close protection officer for Daniel Radcliffe. So we managed to get his autograph. He's got to Jessica, love Daniel Radcliffe. She almost cried when I gave it to her. She was like, "Oh, Dad, how did you get this?" I went, "Hey, it's not what you know, it's who you know."
Nice.
It's got to be done. It's got to be done. So I've got actually a couple of little questions, because obviously you sort of touched on a couple of times that you managed to unfortunately lose a fight due to sort of these stupid commitments to talk on podcasts or do media and things like that. How did you bounce back from your losses? Or is it just one of those where it's not really a loss, it's more of a lesson and it's part of the journey?
It's definitely for me more lessons that are part of the journey. You know, there's some of them where I looked at it and I just didn't understand how I lost. I mean, I can remember when I faced Misha Tate and we were backstage and she's like, I didn't win that fight. You won that fight. I don't understand. I was like, do you want to go tell the judges that? I would love to get this overturned.
Yeah.
But I also agree. I don't know how. She's like, no, I'm still looking to get my paycheck.
Yeah,
So it's those ones where that's just really hard when both you and your opponent and every single person approaches you saying the same thing, like, you actually won that fight. Those are the ones that it's a hard lesson to take from.
Yeah.
Other than understand, like, since I've been in Bellator, I made sure, Vanessa Porta was a harder one because she had more experience than I do. Fighting her and a very tough opponent to be able to find an opportunity to finish her. But I've tried with everything in me to make sure that all my fights in Bellator is I don't make those mistakes like I have in the past where I leave it to the judges and we have to doubt. Is I want to make sure that I finish every single one. And that's always the lessons that when I have a fight where we're all confused on how I lost it, that's the big takeaway, is that finish it. Never leave it to the judges, because the judges are humans. And it could be simply that maybe they like your opponent's clothing more, so they're looking at her and focus on how she's striking rather than the damage done. Or like whenever I see pictures, I make ridiculous faces when somebody hits me. It could not touch me, and I'm still shying. It looks like it damaged me. Never even close. And it's just little things like that can cost you a fight in the judge's eyes, even if everybody, including yourself, knows that you won the fight. So I always have to have takeaways where it's like, okay, finish the fight. Those are those moments. And even in losses where, I was just outdone. My opponent was far more experienced on that day. They were actually better than me. So I just need to go back to the drawing board. I'm back in the gym on Monday trying to figure out the mistakes that I made to improve upon and just to keep growing.
That's awesome. But yeah, that's definitely what I find that is the main thing that a lot of why I like to talk to fighters is because they use it as a lesson. Like, I lost here. What can I learn from this loss? Where, other people go, I lost here. I'm shit. It's like, well, you're not shit, are you? Because you're a professional. If that makes sense. And I think that's why I respect, especially mixed martial artists, more so in that sort of aspect than boxers, because boxers tend to have that little thing in their head where they have to go undefeated to get the recognition. And it's only just sort of recently that people are going, oh, actually, the likes of Anthony Joshua has just lost twice and he's still pretty good. You know what I mean? It's like the boxers are always like, oh, I gotta go undefeated. Oh shit, I lost. Now oh no, what do I do? It's like, well, no, you're still in that top 1%.
Yeah. And to me, if you have a loss and that's what you allow to define you, then you absolutely lost. You truly lost. If you use that as simply as an opportunity for growth and you use it as an opportunity to create more drive and to make changes that improve you, then it's not a loss, it's just a lesson. And that's really what defines somebody who can have the potential to be great or somebody that's going to be mediocre. Is if a loss is what ends your career, then not only does your opponent defeat you, they didn't just win the battle, they won the war.
Yeah.
And that's what I always think of is these losses is when I watch like some of that I've faced, if I beat them and then they quit after that, I didn't just beat them, I destroyed them. Because and you can't have to go back and if you see an opponent where you beat them and then they go on like a 6-fight losing streak, then you destroyed them still, because you're still in their head. You live there. You created a little home and you're in their head continually. So long term, you're still winning. And that's what I always look at is I'll never let an opponent defeat me long term. There's a lesson to be learned. Drop them off where the fight happened and continue moving forward and growing, because I'm not going to let them be a free ride on my backpack and continue shaping my life.
Yeah, that's it. That's a huge statement as well, is getting into their head after winning or beating them that much that they're gone completely. That's a hell of a statement as well. Like, I beat someone so much they retired. And you sort of could see that with well, we can use Ronda. Like, after her loss to Holly Holm, she was not the same. And I think even then she was sort of one foot in, 1 foot out. She was doing her acting. She was sort of getting involved in WWE and all the other stuff. She was this huge star, and it's like, oh, you've got lots of yes people around you now, and you're starting to believe your own hype a little bit. And then Holly Holm kicked their head off.
For Wanda, a big one really is in her head, she was going out undefeated. There was no other scenario. She was going to retire undefeated. And I think she had painted this storyline and was living it so much so that she had not painted any other options in the chapters of her book. So when she lost, that like shattered her glass ceiling. And I think for her, she already succeeded. She'd made a fortune. She was doing so well outside of fighting, and her foot was kind of already in that door. And when that glass ceiling broke, it really only left one opportunity for her, and it was everything else that she'd been focusing on.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's it. It was hard to see. I know a lot of people sort of celebrated it because of obviously, well, the Rousey effect, you could say, where you either loved her or you hated her. And I think that kick heard around the world. Everyone was like, "Ha ha, you deserve that." And then obviously the whole comeback thing, and the UFC were just pushing her and not her opponent, and it was like, oh, you made a mistake there because she's fighting an absolute beast that's gonna not stop. Well, hopefully that you can become the beast and take your opponent's away on the 22nd. Let's see what happens there, because fighting someone who hasn't lost, they don't know what it's like to crawl back up from the bottom.
And I don't think that she's faced adversity in her fights yet the way that I have. I don't think that she's prepared for what's going to happen on the 22nd.
Yeah, to quote Chris Eubank Sr., I'm going to take you to the trenches. You don't know what it's like in there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's get it done. So when is it? It's the 22nd April.
Yep, 2nd.
That's not even far away. That's literally 2 days after my brother's birthday. That is.
It's 2 days after my nephew's birthday.
Oh, does your nephew happen to understand who he celebrates his birthday with?
We've let him know that he shares about Hitler.
and Bin Laden. Oh,
and
congratulations.
He's such a good kid, so it just doesn't fit the bill.
Yeah, I even mentioned it on my brother's. I did the best man speech at my brother's wedding, and I was like, my brother is such a nice guy, but yet he shares the birthday with Hitler and Napoleon. Napoleon's the other one.
Yeah.
Too many. What was it with that date? Absolutely unreal. But fight camp is going well.
It's going great.
Yeah. That's what I like to hear. No, I did notice. I saw on your Instagram that you did stem cell.
I did, yeah.
And that went awesome.
It was interesting. I've had different injuries, different surgeries throughout the career. I mean, I've been doing this for 12 years, and then 5 years in the Marine Corps. And just all my research, all the feedback.
Your knees are going to have to love you. Your knees must be loving you right now.
And I was definitely noticing wear and tear prior to the stem cell. And I would say it takes a few months for the stem cell to truly start for you to notice the effects of it healing your body. Yeah. But I mean, even cuts where I would say that I trained with the 24-year-old and he heals like Wolverine. He got split open in his fight significantly, like his whole eyeball. 6 days later, completely sealed up, like no evidence that he'd ever been cut. And I was like,
someone needs to take his genes. We need to take some of that.
different cuts, different scratches that happen in training, I noticed just how quickly they're healing. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like little Wolverine over here. Like I have his 24-year-old blood pumping through me. They put in stem cells because I'm healing almost as fast as this kid is.
That's what we want. That's what we want. Yeah, because I only really know snippets about stem cell stuff. Obviously through Rogan, listening to Joe Rogan. Obviously he talks about it all the time, how it healed his shoulders and neck and God knows what else. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. And I saw that you had it done. I was like, that's brilliant. I need to know more about that stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah, when I do the math, different surgeries I know friends have had, I've had, we're talking like if you don't have good health insurance, $50,000 for a surgery. Stem cells don't cost that much, and you're not taking all these risks. I mean, there's so many risks when you go into surgeries.
Yeah, cool.
No, it's actually going to fix anything when you come out of it, right? Like Ashley Yoder, perfect example. She had shoulder surgery, went to the best in the biz, and again, a month later, she's having shoulder surgery again because it didn't take. Now, thankfully, it's through the UFC, so the cost is all covered by them. But that's not everything, right? And there's just a perfect example. Her body went under it again. And I mean, my wife all the time just says how she can feel like her body gets more worn out every surgery she has. So if I can do something to keep myself from having surgeries, then it's worth the money to me. And then feeling as good as I do now, when I've been in fight camp since September, it's a no-brainer for me. Stem cell is amazing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like, obviously, your body's not designed to be cut open.
No.
and attempted to be fixed. It's a brilliant biological masterpiece where it actually heals itself in a way. So add in obviously the stem cells and all this sort of stuff. Of course, that's gonna work better.
Yeah.
It's a bit like all the other stuff with like doping and things like that. Like obviously adding extra red and white blood cells into your system, of course that's gonna make you feel a bit more superhuman. So
yeah,
I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. I've got one more quick question. It just popped into my head just then because obviously you're an advocate for the LGBTQI plus few other extra bits that I probably might mess up. So you're probably going to go, dude, I don't want to talk about this. Obviously, that I can't remember their name. The trans swimmer.
Yes.
That's a huge thing.
I agree. Yeah, I'm all for that. If somebody is uncomfortable in their body and they want to make changes, it's their body. Like I'm not going to be that person that's ever going to say like, no, you can't do this or advocate for that. It's not who I personally identify as who I am, but there's so many people that are uncomfortable in their bodies for one reason or another. And if this is what's going to make you feel comfortable, do what you need to, right? But at the same time, there is an advantage. I train with men every day, and men, without a doubt, have a muscular and skeletal advantage over women. You cannot have the numbers you have in any sports and look at them in comparison and tell me that that's not true. You just can't. From weightlifting, from speed, all of it, you can just see the difference in numbers. So I think that there needs to be some type of more restrictions put in place. Like if they have developed to a certain age through puberty, as they're starting to have that increase of testosterone, or even just like I've said before, if MMA and jiu-jitsu had a drug organization and a drug-free organization, I'm all for it. If somebody wants to use steroids and cocaine and whatever, anything else they want to pump into the body, and they feel like that's going to help them succeed in a sport, go for it. Let there be a drug zone and a drug-free zone. In the same sense that there should be transgender people that are competing against each other, or have some stipulation about age and development of the body, so they don't have the skeletal muscular development to help their success, which wouldn't be there had that not been an advantage.
Yeah. Well, it was just a massive thing, wasn't it? Especially, I do apologize to anyone that can remember the person's name, but I can't remember her name. This swimmer, and it's like you've gone from being 462nd in the male category. You've now gone through the change, and now you're a female athlete, and now you're number one. That's a massive red flag. And you could say the same with is it Fallon Fox, the mixed martial artist, and there was another one that I can't remember the name, who wasn't an army ranger, built like a brick shit house.
Yeah, that was dominating the sport. Like, people were going out there, well, Fallon Fox finished up in 37 seconds and broke her entire face. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
what she expect? And there has to be some safety precautions. If we're going to say that women and men can't compete against each other in all these sports, but you can transition and be allowed to, then that's not really fair. You can't say that. Now, if you want to say that young children, a 9-year-old boy against a 9-year-old girl, I don't think that that's the same. They haven't developed through puberty yet.
No, correct. Now, they haven't got that sort of testosterone boost that you get during.
Exactly. Your body hasn't had the adjustments to develop through having all these hormones pumping through the body. But I mean, it'd be the same thing if you had two 16-year-olds and one had started to hit puberty at 10 and had started to have the adjustments and the changes and then transition. Now, at that age, I'd have to do more research. I imagine that's probably just a detriment and harm to their body on how it would actually probably not be advantageous for them because their body's not fully developed. It's still trying to pump these things through. But to me, that would really be an exception, would be in the teenage years where you could have it be an acceptable playing ground. But then you look at a teenage boy that's 18-year-olds and playing football and a teenage girl that's 18, they're not the same.
No, exactly. And it's like coming on to sort of like, we'll take the former army ranger. I think he was a ranger, could be in anything. But he's like transition now at the age, we'll say 30. I don't know what it actually is, but you've got like a good 15 years worth of testosterone in your system. We'll give you, for example, 15 years worth of testosterone, and then you'll be on a sort of even playing field. It's madness. It really is madness.
And you have to wonder too, like, are they testing to see? Because my understanding would be is that you have to continually do injections, right? Whether it be for estrogen, constant injections, and to reduce your testosterone levels to be able to do that. So with that said, if they're in competition, say it's the last month, can they adjust those numbers and lower the amount of estrogen they're putting into their body to have advantage?
Yeah.
Well, like, are we testing that? Because if you're not, I mean, if we can't, like, when you're in USADA, you're not allowed to take testosterone injections.
Of course.
Right? Right? You can go in and you can get a TUE, so you can get a medical professional that says that your numbers are lowered and that you actually need this. But again, it's within limitations, and they monitor how much you're allowed to. You can't go back in and be like, I need to double that up because I'm in competition.
But one of the massive things that I've noticed is it's not the other way around. It's not a female transitioning to be a male and then going, haha, now I'm going to compete. That's not happening. So it's just sometimes it's one of those skeptical hippos where it's like, hang on a minute, you're failing at your sport, so you think you're going to become Joanna Man, like the movie, and put your wig on and play basketball in the WNBA.
I have known women that have transitioned to men, and then they're still an athlete at heart.
Yeah, so of course. I understand that.
Yeah, and now they go out and compete at men, and it's not the same. And I've talked to those friends, and they're like, I had to stop because I was getting destroyed by men. I felt like I was still a woman, and here I am transitioning, and I identify as a man now. But when I go out and compete against a man, I don't feel like that. Yeah, and it was really messing with their head.
That's got to be a hard thing.
Super difficult, and to me, like, that should say something. If women transitioning aren't succeeding in male-dominated sports as a man, then we shouldn't be allowed to reverse it either.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of female sports, obviously you're a pioneer in women's mixed martial arts, like I said. first woman to step foot in the UFC octagon, now fighting again for another world championship. Fingers crossed that you get it. Like, women's sport seems to really be on the rise. Like, I saw the other day, I think I tagged you in the post, I believe, that there was a soccer match in Spain, Barcelona women, and they had a sold out stadium of 91,000 people to watch them play football. And it's like, that's a world record in, I don't know if it's a world record in all sports or just women's. I'm pretty sure it might have just been women's, but it could have been all, who knows. But still, 91,000 people. Like, I've had arguments with friends of mine that say that women's sport isn't on the same level, and I'm like, well, give them the opportunity, and it is on the same level. And he's like, well, and then he argues back at me, well, surely if they were good enough, they would get. I was like, mate, you'll see, because he's only looking at soccer from the English sort of point of view, where that's our national sport. So the male game gets pumped full of money. The women game is now on the rise, but yet you still see some of the stadiums, they're not full and things like that, but it's on the rise. You're seeing more and more women's games on TV and whatnot, but this one sort of just blew out the water, and I was like, that's just brilliant. And having a pioneer like yourself on, and it's just I think it's brilliant, and it's about time there's a bit more equality in terms of sports.
And what I'm saying earlier is, you see in female sports, particularly in MMA, people tune in more, and they look for it, because women are gunning. They're not trying to coast to an easy win and play it smart. They're out to finish each other and hurt each other doing it.
Women are nasty, man.
So, I'd love to put up the numbers and see, but I want to say that Bellator has probably put on more main events with women headlining than any organization, because I feel like if they put on six shows a year, 3 of those are women as the main event. And so that again speaks about what they're trying to do, and trying to represent women as best as they can, and realizing what women have to bring for their platform.
That's awesome. And I think that's a good way to sort of conclude the chat, because I don't really want to take any more of your free time that you've got. I know you've got a very hectic schedule. You got the kid, you got the missus to look after, and you got fight camp as well, because you're definitely going to get that gold.
Thank you.
Definitely. Liz, it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to have you on again. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll catch you again soon.
Okay, have a good one.
Have a good one. See you later.